Hi, Magdalena. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this conference, but also, of course, very sad not to be in presence with you because of unprecedented health issue. Yeah, so I will present online. And first of all, really, I wanted to extend warm thanks to Magdalena and all the organizers from the Piotr Piotrowski Center for Research on East Central European Art. I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I'm really happy to be part of this. So I'll start my presentation to explain what I'm thinking with it. And so basically, it's going to be several episodes that I will go through, which connect to the historic entanglements between Latvia and several countries in Africa, as well as India, pertaining to exhibition histories and knowledge production. And so the account is by no means exhaustive and driven by my own curatorial interest and research over the years. So the title, Long Distance Friendships, Unwritten Stories from Latvia, Congo, Angola, India, and I could actually add a dot there because there are, of course, more. The title may sound ambitious, but at the same time, I have to say that those are really micro traces, micro histories. And by no means they are sort of representing any kind of very large or mainstream narrative in our cultural sphere in Latvia, for instance. However, for me, they are exactly those which point towards existence of alternative histories, to known exchanges, and to nationalist or regional narratives, which, I mean, of course, are also important. So here pictured is the spaces of museum, Art Museum Riga Bers, how it's currently called in Riga. And during the Soviet times, it was called Museum of Foreign Art. And most of those exchanges that I will talk about are related to this museum, because this is where exhibitions from India, from Congo, and Angola took place during the Soviet times. And museum history is also, of course, interesting because it dates back before the foundation of Latvia in 1918, and it's related to collections of Baltic German merchants and elite, and then later they were acquired by the Riga city, and that's how all these objects, both from Western European Romanticist period, the paintings, different objects, as well as objects from ancient Egypt, antique collections, as well as Russian collections, Oriental collections, how they are described, Chinese collections, Indian, Japanese art. So I'm describing as from the current website of the museum. So that's the kind of the spatial context in a way. And but I will start with an episode sort of before the Cold War time, before the Soviet time, that is related to, let's see, how do I, yes, move the presentation, which is related to Vladimir Markov, or Voldemars Matvejs, who was a Latvian artist and art theorist whose essay, Iskustvo Negrov, or Negro Art, how it was called, was published in 1919, so 5 years after author's death. It is described as pioneering investigation into the aesthetics of African works of art that was later actually presented in Senegal in 1966 at the World Festival of Black Arts, also known as FESMAN. And it was presented there by the Soviet delegates. I have been interested in this artist in his own right, but also my attention was caught by this episode that I saw in FESMAN. So that this artist from Latvia, from beginning of 20th century, who was doing his research on African art without going to Africa, because what he was doing, he was visiting European museums. So then he becomes something that Soviet Union presents in the in this World Festival of Black Arts. So Markov lived in Riga, in St. Petersburg, went to traveled Western Europe a lot, and there he studied, of course, French modernism, but also he sort of studied African art, and as it's also described, for its own right, instead of, like, for instance, Picasso, having it just as a use for his modernist experimentation or as a reference. So he sort of developed his own categorization, and he would be writing about it in terms of its own value. And so this is, I think, really interesting. Of course, it's not like something that we would consider fully emancipatory, but it is showing a different attitude, as sort of many Western artists would do at the time. And so let me show you a small clip where his book appears in Festman. So we have a fast forward to this moment in time. So I'm stopping the video here, and of course the Soviet voice in a very happy and propaganda-like way is describing how happy we are for this treasure and how wonderful it is that Waldemar Matveis was doing this research on African art already so many years back. But it is indeed interesting because the Soviet delegation were invited as friends in the festival. Senegal had gained independence in 1960. The festival is taking place 1966, so it is really becoming part of this circulation of struggle, in a way, like already Pan-Africanism discussion, a debate, and even this short moment of emancipation, of liberation, and also, of course, where socialism and socialist friends like Soviet Union play a big role, but also, of course, the non-aligned friendships are formed with former Yugoslavia. So that is episode 1, and then we kind of move forward to those exhibitions of arts from India, Congo, and Angola that took place in Riga in the museum currently called Riga Birth, which I found in the archive of the museum when I was looking at its history. And I have to mention that it's been really interesting because when I talked to the archivists, they would really express very honestly that in that time, they were looking forward to exhibitions of Western art, if any, from are abroad. These exhibitions that came as cultural diplomatic gifts, let's say, we could say, or really obligations, they really, at this current time, they were dismissing and saying like, yeah, we were not really happy. We really wanted to see some art from Belgium, for instance, or something like that. And to me, that is also really interesting, because at the same time, I would read also certain kind of media reports, and also people would leave their notes, and people were, of course, fascinated. Everyone liked it. Like, everyone liked exhibition of art from India. At the same time, that likeness, of course, was full of exotization, of wonder, of thinking, you know, or affirming certain stereotypes of like what India is, how spiritual it is, and how you actually see it in the arts of those exhibitions. So here we see basically a certain kind of archival material. And India exhibitions took place several times, 1963, 74, and 87. And those are the ones that are documented, where you can see actually like documented works, exhibition openings, and then the other ones, unfortunately, I haven't found the documentation. So and basically we could, so the 74 exhibition showed 54 works from the 40s to 50s from the collection of the Moscow State Museum of Oriental Art, a gift from India to the Soviet Union. So like, and then it traveled to Latvia, right? So works could be characterized by a variety of themes and styles of painting and printmaking, among them artists like Jamini Roy, one of the most famous pupils of Abanindranath Tagore, founder of the influential Bengal School of Art, who alongside other artists advocated in favor of a modern nationalist Indian art, or Katingeri Krishna Heber, known for his India-themed artworks. Then 1987 exhibition, the works were brought from Delhi Contemporary National Gallery as part of the larger India Festival celebrations in the Soviet Union, from which art was just one component. And there we get like these very exalted reviews where people are saying that, you know, that strange were symbols, the ancient Hindu signs that we saw depicted in paintings and sculptures, but close and understandable was the sparkling color, so vital and bright. Also understandable is the spirituality so strongly emphasized in the 20th century Indian art and sought out by people all over the world. So that's the review in the Latvian press. And so we know, of course, that cultural events were part of larger strategic, military, economic, and diplomatic relationship between India and the USSR during the Cold War. Beginning in the 50s, notably, it was the most successful of Soviet Union's attempts to foster relationships with the third world countries. Soviets acted as peace broker between India and Pakistan over the Kashmir territorial dispute. They also gave India substantial economic and military assistance during the Khrushchev period, and were neutral during the Sino-Indian War of 1962, putting at risk their own relationship with China. I'm just adding here a couple of pictures from the catalogs. There's Festival of India, some invitations, some works by artists, more posters, also posters, and then we go to exhibition of art from Congo, 1968. And so that is interesting because, yeah, I mean, if India exhibitions, some were having artifacts, ethnographic objects and collections, but mostly it was modern art at the time. Then Congo exhibition was having both, you know, artifacts from museums as well as art, but art came from the Poto Poto school. So this is also how it's depicted in the media. And another media clipping, and Poto Poto School is a Western established school in Congo, established by Pierre Lotz, a French artist in the 50s. And so what I want to say, of course, it may have seen, yeah, I mean, you could look at the individual artists that took place. You could look at the whole context of the Podo school. But talking to younger generation artists from Angola, I realized that there is, and this is where I come to kind of the end of my presentation in a way, that I look at those exhibitions with this idea of how to make them relevant today. Like, what are those threads and connections that I could see where I see certain kind of emancipatory gestures or connections, you know? And so younger generation Angolan artists would say that they have been really influenced by Paulo Capella, an artist who actually was trained in Poto school in Congo in the 60s, and from 1960. And so this is really interesting that now also as part of a project in Latvia, we are inviting artist Jon Amin, who is an Angolan artist based in Greece, to work with the small archival images that we have from this exhibition in Riga, and to really bring in then Paulo Capella and his teaching and that generations of artists. So I think this is what kind of actually interests me about these exhibitions. So, I mean, similar process that I should do of research is to look at this Angola graphic exhibition and to trace down the artists and to see what is that, you know, how can I make it relevant also to contemporary context and artists. And I will end here with sort of showing another example of how I've worked with those exhibitions and these archives. So in 1987 exhibition, we had, I looked at the artist list, and Krishna Reddy was one of the artists. And then when I did a project in Riga Burst, sort of in relation to their own archive, it was very important for me to bring back this work by Krishna Reddy, which, you know, is a print of several copies, but he showed it in Riga. He didn't come himself, so there wasn't an artist exchange, but I felt it important for that work to come back, not as in the framework of cultural diplomacy, how these exhibitions are framed, but really as an artist in itself. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think this is where I could also end. Yeah, I mean, I didn't enter into the biography of Krishna Reddy, but he's a printmaker master, really influential Indian modern artist who had his workshop in Paris, and he worked with many, you know, he taught many students, and his technique was really unique. So like the fact that, you know, his works have been shown in Riga, I think it's really exceptional. Yeah, and I think that those gestures of curatorial work in the presence sort of can, bringing back those long distance friendships from the past, can really work beyond only those political solidarities or cultural diplomacy. And yeah, and I guess my question also for that I would like to sort of leave is like, yeah, I mean, how can we perhaps rebuild those connections, and also think about connections that were never really there, but actually build them and build on this failure that sometimes happened within those relationships and inequality that was there, and really think about solidarity in the future, you know, and a true kind of yeah, exchange that could happen. So I know that you are running out of time, and to be very precise, I will say a huge thank you. And, you know, I'm not sure if there are moments for questions, but I'm, you know, happy to always answer those and be in touch. Thank you so much.